Having a fantastic day. Those of you who are coming back to watch this over again, welcome in. Happy to have you. So, earlier I got cut off because I had a delivery. I'll just show you what got delivered. I've been waiting on this for quite a while. There she is, the replacement. I will make a video about that soon, and we'll talk about that later on. Thank you, Grinch. All right, guys. I got to finish these handles today. I'm finishing them today. I'm not taking no for an answer. All right. So these 3 Gen 3 counter strikes are done. They are as far as I'm taking them because they're going to get taken apart and Cerakoted. So we'll go ahead and remove these from our cart. I'll set them over here to be disassembled. And then I will mark the scales and the blade. I'll take it to the laser and put a 1, a 2, and a 3 on there. Because there's going to be some microscopic differences given that they're all handmade. So that leaves us with these 12 adventures and 5 more counter strikes. Now, the only thing that I did off camera was I finished the spines. And I finished the underneath with the tiny wheel. I had to use the little tiny wheel to get all that. This little dude. And it makes a crap load of racket. It makes so much noise. And it takes just a minute to do all that. But that's the size of little tiny wheel I got to have to get in there for this one. I really don't use this for anything other than like big sharpening choils or just big decorative choils. But I used it for these because that's how I wanted the guard to fit. Anyway, I'll show you one more time. There it is. There it is. Nope, this is just a, this is another kiln. Another one of these. So this thing is decrepit. And the floor's all burned up. The biggest issue though is that this coil in the back is a slinky. When it gets hot and the pin that's supposed to hold it in is all wore out. It's one of these ceramic pin. It doesn't stay in anymore, so the coil sags out. And I've pushed it in and out of there. I've pushed it in so many times. This kiln is about 13 years old, and it's done probably $500,000 worth of knives. No joke. But this one right here is an extra 9 inches deeper inside. So now I can go from making, you know, all small stuff, which the biggest knife that I make is the Walkabout. No, that's wrong. The biggest knife is the Huntsman and Eagle. Both of those are 12.5 inches, and that is maximum size for the old kiln. And this kiln can go up to 22 inches. So, short swords anyway. Yeah, that'll be cool. That'll be cool. All right, so now all I've got to do is the 400 grit. We'll just do the sides and the spine all the way around on the big wheel and the small wheel. And then Scotchbrite will be done. It'll be time to sharpen. And I'll see what time it is when I get done with these. If it's within the next half hour or so, I guess. I might stick around and sharpen. All right, guys. I'm going to get moving. What's up? What's up, everybody? Good to see you. There we go. What's up, Earl? Almost there. Alright, now let's grab the Scotchbrite. Here, I was thinking earlier I was going to do the small wheel first. So I put it over there, I guess. This won't take too long. There we go. Getting shiny now. Start laying it down. Don't want my carbon screws crashing each other. What's up, everybody? Welcome in. Planning our space a little better. Can't have them touching each other now. At least I would rather they don't. Three more adventures. One. Three. Now we'll do the counter strike. Go. Not much to those. I still got to do the small wheel on both sides of these. pretty. Two more. That'll do for the big wheel. Now let's move to the small wheel. This will go a lot faster than the 400 on the big wheel. All right. Here we go. Start with the adventure. That's all we're doing, just like that. It goes pretty quick. Nice. Nice color. A lot of people would cry about that little burn, but it adds so much character to the color, especially on the denim. Because it really doesn't do it on the matte or the green. You know, if it applies to matte, no burn at all. That's to do with the color. We got to do the back and the front of these. Like that. There we go. Now, we'll do Scotchbrite. Same process. Goes just as fast. Grab it off this other machine. Set up. Wrenches first. There we go. Bright and shiny now. So, we went from this to this. Hard to tell the difference, but this one is way more shiny. And it's also smooth and clean. This one is too, but now it's a little extra. I'm going to run through them all. Now, I ran through that kind of fast because it's faster if I just run through it and not show you every single one at the end of every single one. That process can go really, really quickly. Now, I'm going to do the bevels, and these blades will be ready to sharpen. Here we go. Scotchbrite on the bevels. The best part. Pretty much a finished knife. I just put a smudge on it. Three more. There we go. Thank you, sir. All right, guys. Now, screw it. I'm just gonna sharpen. These sharpening goes way easier if I haven't already oiled them and left them oiled overnight. So I finished within my time margin that I was hoping to finish. Let me grab a couple of 400 grit belts. We'll go ahead and sharpen these. Get it over with. I won't have to do anything but etch and sheets tomorrow. A whole entire day early for the week. So we're going to just go ahead and sharpen. Turn this vacuum off. It won't be so annoying. Shouldn't need it for this process. Although it does get a little dusty. Right now, I'm crunching the belt, breaking the belt, because these aluminum oxide belts, when they get cut, they always kind of curl because they're so super thin. Plus, humidity can change that as well. But I want to make sure that it's not super stiff and curled on the edges so as not to leave a smile or overcut. Slow speed. Grab my sharpening rig. Just hiding back here underneath a pile of belts from 3 weeks worth of knives. I've cleaned the shop in between every week. But I haven't emptied my belts over the past 3 weeks of runs. And so they're quite piled up. Hell, they're just piled up on the floor now. So I didn't have to start it just yet. Turn it all down. Mask on, get you guys set up at a little better angle. Time for new bolts. And this old wrench is wore out too. Alright, let's raise it up just a little. There we go. You guys should be able to see pretty good there. Alright, 400 grit belt. The slowest this grinder will go. This is a 3-speed belt driven grinder. The one with the VFD over there, now that one can go really slow, but the angle of the belt between this wheel and the idler wheel is different because it has a 6-inch drive wheel, and I have to move this wheel closer in order to put the belt on. I don't want to fool with everything. I've had the same process forever, so we're not going to change it. We're just going to run it on this grinder. Does perfect speed. We'll do the adventures first. I'm just putting them in the clamp. This is just a fulcrum pinch clamp. Got a bolt in the center and little steps cut out up front to clamp the blade. Set screw in the back. This is inspired by the Tormach system, but I didn't like the Tormach system. I like a convex belt edge better. Even on the point, even at the hilt. Good to go. There's one. Before I get too far, I really need to go and grab my caddy. Let's go grab that right quick. And before we go forever into this, let me just show you guys what kind of sharp I'm trying to achieve. So that right there was one edge on an adventure, a 400 grit edge, and we have a nice even burr, which you can't see because it's too small for the camera. Now I'm just going to strop that edge. I use a buffer and a hard cloth wheel and a white polishing compound. And I only touch it just a few times. And I don't get heavy with it. Nice and light. That's gonna be it. Let's grab us a paper towel. And that's the kind of sharp that I'm trying to achieve here. That's the kind of sharp that I'm getting here. We're not trying to achieve it, we've achieved it. You can see it could strop even a little more. That's sharp though. That's as sharp as about as sharp as a knife ever needs to be, for me anyways. For most anyone, they just don't know. That's sharp though. Anyhow, I was supposed to go and grab something. But since this one is out of the way, I'll go ahead and set it down. Let me go grab, there it is, I see you. This guy. That way we're not banging them together when we're shaking the cart around it around. You know what I'm saying? All right, we're good to go now. Sorry if I lost you and bored you for a second. We're gonna get back to sharpening right now, but I've got to get these off of the cart and into this carrier. Scrub the tip. And of course, only just it left us with one extra adventure. Alrighty. I'll just go ahead and set it in there. How about that? Now, grab us a blade. Pipe her down. Get cracking. You guys can see. One side. See that pretty little edge? Nice. Pretty and clean, nice and even. Got 10 more of those to do. Once we get through these adventures in the carrier, we're going to take them over and strop them. Then we'll come back and do the counter strike after emptying these out. Let me set that one over there. Another one down. Nothing. Hey, what's up? We made it to 100 likes. Thanks, guys. Yeehaw! Trying to replace that tape. Starting to leave a little tape glue on my blade now. Right now I'm sharpening dry. I pretty much always grind and sharpen dry. I don't really have to worry about too much heat as long as I'm not being excessive. This grinder is running really, really slow right now. You guys bored yet? Well, I'm sure there's more work. Yeah. I'll have to come up with something to just blabber about while I'm doing this one day. Find some way to interact with you guys, because I know this isn't the most exciting process. It doesn't create any spark. It's really slow and tedious. Maybe you guys just want silence. Maybe that's what you want. Got up and worked. I'm fooling with you guys. Hey, we got through a rack. I'm going to go ahead and do this other Nitro V Adventure. Get it out of the way. And then I'll change belts before doing those counter strikes. Even though this one doesn't really fit in the tray right now, we'll just take it over and do it like we did the last one. This belt is barely cutting though. Alright, one side. There we go. Alright, that's it for the adventures. Now we just got to do the counter strikes, but first we're going to go strop these adventures, get them out of the carrier here. Time for me to get a new bar of compound, polishing compound. Let's see. Sharp enough. Reckon? Well, I'm dragging my little calloused finger across just to see if it catches anywhere. I'll find a burr. Do the same thing with your fingernail. Smooth all the way across. And very, very, very bitey going this way across the fingernail. That's what we want. I don't want a silky drag. I want a little raspy. I don't want all the teeth gone. I don't want to polish it out. Very nice. One more. There we go. Last adventure. Sharp. Good and sharp. So let's take these over and get them out of the carrier. Then we'll finish those counter strikes and we'll be done for the day. I'm happy though, because now all I have to work on for the rest of the week is sheaths for these guys. So that's pretty nice. This is supposed to be happening tomorrow. Well, kinda. Wednesdays are usually always my finish grind days. But I did that yesterday. There's the adventures. Set these counter strikes in here. Alright. Now I'm not going to sharpen these three because these three are going to get pulled apart. I'm going to mark them and then they're going to get bead blasted and Cerakoted because these three are going to be Gen 3s. See the removable screws versus Corby screws. See, these are Torx head screws. These are Corby screws. And these guys right here just come apart real easy. Really easy. Just removing the screws, obviously. And then they come apart. Voila. So there's your handles. These guys will get blasted separately, and the blade will get blasted on its own as well. Then Cerakoted. But I'm going to take those to the laser and laser on a little 1 and a 2 on a couple of them, just so I can tell them apart. Because the handles are going to be just slightly different. You never know, they might be really close. But they're all hand done, so there's going to be some variance. We want them to be the exact fit. Don't want no variating junk. We want them to be right. So as not to get them mixed up, I'll mark them. Right now, I'm just spraying WD-40 on these finished knives. And the WD-40 will get up underneath all the junk on the surface, dust and tape glue, or whatever else is on the surface. It'll get in between that and the surface and lift it off, make it easier to clean. There's those adventures for the week. These are all Nitro V adventures, and they are in 5/32 stock, so thinner than the normal adventure, which is 3/16. I've got 5 of them in the double green. The double green is awesome. That's Maker's Choice. And then I've got 4 of them in the denim blue. These guys are awesome. And then we've got 3 of them in Nat. Pretty sweet. Really, really good looking blades. Nothing like classic adventure. Set all these aside here. And I've got Counter-Strike here. This is the one that we were playing with yesterday. The first Counter-Strike. Alright, let's go sharpen these other 5. And I'll be done. The leather strop with a compound should be more aggressive than a cotton wheel. I do like leather wheels. I don't like cardboard wheels. Cardboard is too aggressive. In my experience, I have accidentally burned edges with cardboard. I've not really ever accidentally burned an edge with cotton because, I mean, you really have to bite into it hard. That's why I like cotton, because it's so soft. But I do like, my second choice would be a leather wheel or just a leather strop. I think they're great. I do. So you wouldn't need to be, well, I guess it just depends. If you're just hand stropping, you just have to go until you feel your burr kind of level off and pinch off. Like if you have a wheel, a leather wheel, most leather wheels are meant to turn super slow because you can't really stitch a seam, so they'll just come apart. Yeah, no, you probably have to go 2 or 3 times as long for sure. It doesn't take much though. I mean, it really, really doesn't. If you step up your grits somewhere around that 400, I mean, hell, sharpeners start at 220 up to 400 and then go way up from there. So keep in mind that the farther you go up in grit, the less you'll need to strop. If you overstrop like a 2000 micron finish edge, then you'll polish the edge. What'll happen is it'll feel like it's lightsaber massive, like atom splitting sharp for a minute, and then it'll just start feeling really slick. It's because you polished all the teeth off. And part of that reason is because, you know, when you're going up in grit on, well, I mean, stones and like diamond hones and stuff like that, you're essentially polishing it anyway. So The stropping part is all by feel. It would all be by feel. If I feel like it needs to be stropped more, then I'll strop it more. All right, only 5 more. Woo! And we got a new belt, so this should go pretty quick. That one started to move in the jig there, in my clamp there, but I did get it all the way. Let it re-clamp it, finish. It's time to retape these jaws. Damn thing! Yeah. Alrighty. Oh, my tape's coming off. Oh, I can make it for a couple more points. No. I had to go tape because it's just not gonna make it. I'll have to retape my jaws here. Give me just a second. Where'd my used ones go? Oh. Okay. Stick with me, guys. Just a second. Let's pull this center screw out. Make it easier. So here you can see the step that I've got cut into this side of the jaw. This is the side with the bar. And the other side has the screws. And it is also stepped. So when they go together, they create a channel like so. We use that center bolt to set our distance, and then that back bolt raises it, pinches it. That's all it is. But I gotta keep it taped, that way the jaws don't scratch the blades. And they won't most of the time anyway, because I've got them really smoothed out in the event that the tape comes off like that. What it starts by doing is kicking a blade out because the tape is already not there. That's what just happened on that other blade. Thankfully it didn't happen until like right at the very end so it didn't screw the edge up. Most of the time what happens, it'll just lay the edge back at a steeper angle because the knife will kind of start to push out while you're relying on the clamp. But we saved it. All right, we're all taped up. Now let's go back to the grinder. We've got 4 more. Now, it'll hold nice and solid and flat. It'll feel a lot more solid when I screw it down and not so mushy. But we're wearing out tape. Just the way it goes. Go. That's 2. 3 more. Nice pretty edge. Nice. 2 more. 2 more. Woo. Beauty. Love your paint. Wait. All right. Beauty. That is it for the edges. Now let's go strop them. Here to go. The ADC RV2 being softer always strops a little faster than Nitro V, but the potential for sharpness is just as good. This thing's too small. Pieces flying all over the place. Sharp, sharp, right? There we go. Sharpening session complete. We can slice this little microscopic piece of paper towel here and get it all the way down. Can we go all the way down? Oh, it bunched up. Oh no, it's still going. Still going. Still going. Oh no, we veered off. Huh? Ha! We did it. All the way down. Heck yeah. These guys are done. Let's go look at them. Talk about them for a second. These things are sweet. Can't speak much on Magna Cut, as I have been opposed to the massive issue that I have with the price. See, I try not to be one of those that gets too swept up in everything, but given that I'm really trying to keep my prices as friendly as possible, because I believe that's the way they should be, I just can't see myself charging an extra 50, 60 to 80 bucks per Magna Cut blade, because in my opinion, it's not any better than Nitro V. Go on, cry, yo. I know there's somebody out there just absolutely having a fit over that. I don't care. Nitro V sharpens easier. And people say that it is way more corrosive resistant. Maybe. I mean, I'm not living in the rainforest, so I don't have any customers that are either. I don't think. But nobody's ever had a problem with Nitro V. At least nobody from me. And I've been like deliberately trying to get Nitro V to corrode on some of my personal daily carries, and I have tried to get Nitro V to corrode and I can't. Now, I will say this, improperly heat-treated Nitro V can corrode, improperly heat-treated any kind of stainless. You have major decarbs that you did not get it all off of the surface or anything like that. There's factors that can lead to premature corrosion, but properly done Nitro V is, in my opinion, the baddest of the bad. I love it. I know on paper it can be beaten. I know technically it's not the best, but we here at VGKC think it is the best. That's why I use it. I think it's just the best deal. Plus, it's cheap. I don't have to have like a $50, $60 upcharge for going from carbon steel to stainless steel. That's because there is a price difference in the steel, but the biggest difference is the time and the belt consumption. So, like, Nitro V has to be ground all after heat treat. Well, that's fine and dandy, except for compared to ADCR V2, it is about 2 points to 2.5 points with my recipe harder than Nitro or ADCR V2. I like Nitro V about 62.5 to 63, and I like my ADCR V2 at about 60, 60.5, up to 61. And that's where I like the ADCR V2. And given that it is oil quenched, I can do differential heat treat with it and do all my grinding before heat treat. And that way, they come out heat treated. They're ready to finish grind. Whereas Nitro V has to be plate quenched. At least that's the way I'm doing it. I'm plate quenching it. And I want my plates to be even on both sides. I don't want any rigid or any part of this knife not touching the plate in its foil packet. But then that means all the grinding has to be done after heat treating. And given that they're really hard, they eat belts like crazy. So I could rough grind and get about 10 bevels to a belt with ADCR V2, talking about like adventures. And I get 2 bevels to that same 36 grit belt with Nitro V. And those belts are 10 bucks a piece. So there's a massive price difference. And not to mention the very tedious and very different and more intricate heat treating process. Although it is easier in terms of flow to get it going, like doing a whole bunch of Nitro V during the daytime. It's still like this roll of foil is 400 bucks. So anyway, that's a major difference for me in price with the stainless steels. But as far as stainless steels go, AEBL Nitro V, that's as good as it ever needed to be. Anyhow, I'm late for dinner, guys, and I'm finally done with everything. All I've got left to do for the week is make sheaths for all these knives, and then tomorrow I will blast and Cerakote these 3 Gen 3 counter strikes. And then once they're blasted and Cerakoted and put back together, they'll get sharpened and caught up with the rest of these. Anyway, I appreciate you guys' support. Thanks for tuning in. Guys, if you are new to the channel and you have not done so, do hit that subscribe button. It'll let you know when I'm going live again. And yeah, I need to get home. But I stayed late today so I could maybe take Friday off. Because if I can get everything that I need to get done tomorrow done, then I'll be able to take a whole day off this week. That'll be awesome. Anyway, I appreciate you guys' support. Thanks for tuning in.